Again, it's great to see so many faces, some that I know, some new faces, which is great. Some new names here. If you are here for the first time, feel free to share in the chat, letting us know how you heard about us, what brought you to the space today. If you're here for the first time, let us know. Let us know where you're zooming in from. Feel free to say hi to the chat, just hi in the chat to everyone. Again, we're excited for tonight's community meeting. We're joined by a special guest today who's going to guide us in the conversation. We're looking for folks to engage in the conversation, right? So there'll be opportunities for you all to come off mute, perhaps read a quote, share some thoughts, or share some reflections. Um, and just inviting you all to really like step out of your comfort zone, jump in. I know I speak a lot, so I like to step back. But I'm very excited just to have you all here. If you join us for the first time, let us know a little bit more about you. I know you all registered for the Zoom link, for the Zoom meeting, but we have a form in which you can add a little bit more about you all yourself, so that we can get to know you better, right? And I believe they dropped it in the chat now, and I can't see the chat. Let me bring that up. Excuse me. Um, so that's in the chat there. We ask folks, our community members, to please stay muted. Um, Unless you're asked to come off mute, please feel free to use the chat also, or raise your hand, use the reaction features on that. Um, but again, as I mentioned, we're going to be joined today in a great conversation, um, talking about our collective struggles, right? Learning from the leaders before us. It is Black History Month, and we always want to pay homage to those that were before us, continue to learn from one another, but also from the leaders before us, especially in everything that we face, whether it be in our communities, in our state, in our country. Continue to learn. I always say I'm a student at heart. Before we get started, though, I will pass it over to my colleagues briefly to introduce themselves, and I'll pass it over to Antoinette.
Thank you so much, Efrain. And it's so nice to see some familiar spaces as well and some new ones in this space. Hi, Danny. Hi, Kendra. Hi, Liz. Hey, folks. And thank you, everyone. Hey, Serafine. And thank you, everyone who's joining for the first time. Please definitely do let us know what brought you here, and also sign up to receive additional updates about our work and ways to engage at tinyurl.com/joinij. I am Antoinette Ratcliffe, pronouns she, her, and hers. I am the executive director here at Initiate Justice, and I am honored to be sharing space with all of you tonight. Thank you so much, Efrain.
Alyssa.
Hi everyone, Alyssa here from IJ. Pronouns she, her, hers. I'm the executive assistant here and excited to be in space with y'all and learn alongside y'all, and excited and happy that I see some familiar faces as well. And then I will pass it now to Adriana.
Hi, everyone. Adriana, Statewide Advocacy Manager, she, her pronouns. It's nice to be in space with everyone this Wednesday, and I will pass it back to Ephraim.
Actually, it stays with you. You're gonna kick us off with some of our organizational updates. We have a quick organizational update, some
Well,
exciting news.
Ephraim, since we have some volunteers here, do you want to pop it over to them so they can maybe introduce
Oh,
themselves?
you're actually right. Actually, folks, we're being joined today by three of our volunteers from our Engaging LA UCLA program. So if you feel called to, I'll let you all just hop off mute. I'll pass it to you, Anissa, since you are smiling and you look ready.
Yes, I'm so ready. Hi, my name is Inessa. Some of you might have gotten a call from me. If you have, hi, nice to see you. I really enjoy working with Initiate Justice, and it is my first quarter with them. And yeah, I'm super excited to be here.
Hi everyone, I'm Leticia. I'm a third year UCLA political science student, And I'm really excited to be partnered with Initiate Justice, especially as someone who's also been impacted by the justice system. So yeah, I'm really excited for today.
Hi, I'm Sophie. I'm a second year at UCLA. This is my first community meeting with IJ, and I'm excited to see how it goes.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Thank you all. And I'll pass it over. As I mentioned, we're going to start off with before we get into the conversation, Adriana's going to kick us off actually with some exciting organizational updates. And then she's going to begin our conversation, our meeting, opening us up with a poem.
Yes, what's up, everybody? Happy Wednesday. All right, so just to kick us off with a quick update, not really an update, but more like an announcement. And so I know for those that might have been able to join our January kickoff meeting last month, I mentioned to you that we were going to be coordinating some in-district meet and greet visits this year, again for the legislature's spring recess. And so we are gearing up to send out sign up forms to folks. We have been spending the last couple of weeks getting some of our outside organizers involved and signed up so they can lead some of these visits. Well, we are about to send out a community sign up form tomorrow. Matter of fact, we're about to announce this tomorrow. Where everybody will get a chance to sign up for a visit that is either happening in their district, or if a visit is not happening in your district, then you can still sign up if you would still like to do a visit, even if it's not happening in your district, even if it's not one that we have identified and said like, hey, we are coordinating this specific visit. You can still sign up with us and we will still support you, provide training materials, all of the support that you need to be able to do this on your own, or with others, friends, family, in your own districts. And so there will be more information about that coming tomorrow. So stay tuned. Make sure you sign up to our email listserv so you do not miss the full announcement with all of the details, all of the important details. If already it sounds like you might be interested, if you can go ahead and drop your email into the chat, and that way I can make sure that I send the sign up form and everything you need directly to you. Or I will also be dropping my email into the chat so you can just reach out to me directly. Either right now, this evening, drop something into my inbox and say, hey, I'm interested. And you mentioned something about in-district visits. I'm interested. Give me more information and I'll make sure that you get that. But yes, we will be coordinating spring in-district meet and greet visits for state assembly members and state senators. The visits will be happening from March 26th until all the way through April 6th, which is a Monday. And so that is when the legislature will be on what's known as spring recess, and many of the representatives will be back home in their home districts, working, taking meetings and things of that nature. So it's a perfect time for you if you don't live like close to the Capitol and you're not able to get to the Capitol. It's the perfect opportunity to join up and meet your representatives. And it's a perfect opportunity to continue or even start building those relationships with folks. Because in order for us to do this work, it is important that we build relationships with the people that are holding these seats of power, so that they remember that they work for us and not the other way around. So I think that is it. Ephraim, did I miss anything that folks should know about meet and greets at this stage?
No, but I'll just remind folks I know for myself it was scary for the first time thinking about going to meet a representative. I'll just add this. I'll just add it's no pressure. It's a meet and greet. Get to know them, build relationships with them. My assembly's member, Caloza, was her first year last year. I'm barely building that relationship, but it comes with it's a great connection to build so they can hear directly from us of what we care about, what our interests are, what we would like to see, especially for our communities. And you're pretty much sharing about you, whatever you're comfortable with. And I can't stress enough how important they are, because as Adriana said, they work for us and they should be hearing from us. because best believe they're hearing from the opposition.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So as I said, more information will be coming out tomorrow. So stay tuned to your emails, to our social media, because it will be going up there as well. Facebook, Instagram, all the places that you can catch us on social. So just make sure you're tuned in. That's it for that piece. Any questions? All righty, no questions, and I don't see anything coming through the chat. Just stay tuned. With that, going to transition it back to myself because I'm also next on the agenda. And so normally, if you are new to these meetings, normally we sometimes like to utilize this space for sort of a grounding, to kind of ground us and remind us for why we're doing this work, what brings us into this space, all of those good vibes. Today, because with our guest speaker and because of the subject that we are going to be discussing, which is along the lines of remembering our roots, Black liberation, Indigenous liberation, all of the liberation, and learning from the past and learning from our ancestors, and particularly Black liberation on this Black History Month, and in this present moment that we find ourselves in this state and in this country. And so I am going to be sharing a poem with all of you by one of my favorite poets. I discovered this poet when I was in the 8th grade. So 2002, his name is Langston Hughes, for folks that may not be familiar. But the poem that I'm going to share with you this evening was written in 1935. And so it was during the Great Depression. And Langston Hughes is a very famous poet of our time, of that particular time of the 20th century. And he wrote this particular poem that I'm going to be sharing called Let America Be America Again. He wrote this in 1935 at a time when our nation was really depressed, right? It was the Great Depression. And he started to really emphasize a need for radical political action in our states and in our nation. And so he is also one of the voices of movement work and civil rights and political action and political change. And so bear with me, because it's not super short, but it's not super long. But I felt like this was so timely that it's still very relevant today. And I hope that it also speaks to you. And I think that it's very, very relevant for the conversation that we're going to be having today. So it's called Let America Be America Again. Let America be America again. Let it be the dream it used to be. Let it be a pioneer on the plain, seeking a home where he himself is free. America was never America to me. Let America be the dream the dreamers dreamed. Let it be that great, strong land of love, where never kings connive nor tyrants scheme, that any man be crushed by one above. It was never America to me. Oh, let my land be a land where liberty is crowned with no false patriotic wreath, but opportunity is real and life is free. Equality is in the air that we breathe. That's never been equality for me. There's never been equality for me, nor freedom in this homeland of the free. Say, who are you that mumbles in the dark? And who are you that draws your veil across the stars? I am the poor white, fooled and pushed apart. I am the Negro bearing slavery's scars. I am the red man driven from the land. I am the immigrant clutching the hope that I seek, and finding only the same old stupid plan of dog eat dog, of mighty crush the weak. I am the young man full of strength and hope, tangled in that ancient endless chain of profit, power, gain, of grab the land, of grab the gold, of grab the ways of satisfying need, of work the man, of take the pay, of owning everything for one's own greed. I am the farmer, bondsman to the soil. I am the worker sold to the machine. I am the Negro servant to you all. I am the people, humble, hungry, mean. Hungry yet today, despite the dream. Beaten yet today. Oh, pioneers. I am the man who never got ahead, the poorest worker bartered through the years. Yet I'm the one who dreamt our basic dream. In that old world, while still a serf of kings, who dreamt a dream so strong, so brave, so true, that even yet its mighty daring sings. In every brick and stone, in every furrow turned, that's made America the land it has become. I'm the man who sailed those early seas in search of what I meant to be my home, for I'm the one who left dark Ireland's shore and Poland's plain and England's grassy lea. And torn from Black Africa's strand, I came to build a homeland of the free. The free? Who said the free? Not me. Surely not me. The millions on relief today, the millions who shot down when we strike, the millions who have nothing for our pay, for all the dreams we've dreamed, all the songs we've sung, and all the hopes we've held, and all the flags we've hung. The millions who have nothing for our pay, except the dream that's almost dead today. Oh, let America be America again, the land that never has been yet, and yet must be. The land where every man is free. The land that's mine, the poor man's, Indians, Negroes, me, who made America, whose sweat and blood, whose faith and pain, whose hand at the foundry, whose plow in the rain, must bring back our mighty dream again. Sure, call me any ugly name you choose. The steel of freedom does not stain. From those who live like leeches on the people's lives, we must take back our land again, America. Oh yes, I say it plain, America was never America to me. And yet I swear this oath, America will be. Out of the rack and ruin of our gangster death, the rape and rot of graft and stealth and lies, we, the people, must redeem the land, the mines, the plants, the rivers, the mountains and the endless plain, all the stretch of these great green states, and make America again. And that is it, y'all. I hope that it spoke something to you. As I said, that was written in 1935 and still very, very, very relevant today. So thank you, Ephraim and community, for allowing me space to share that with you this evening.
No, thank you very much. I know you when you told me, I was like excited, just something that's still relevant here today, and sharing that with us. Appreciate it so much. All right, y'all. We're gonna keep going. Without further ado, I'm happy to share um someone who I've been following for a while, who I've learned from, someone who I look as a leader. Fernando de Veras. He's a Mexican American son of immigrants, a father, a community organizer, an educator. On his social media commentator. We'll drop his Instagram on in the chat. But his Instagram is dedicated to providing these educational topics, such as history, politics, current events, in a way that's accessible and also comes with action, right? Tackling issues in the local, national, and international level. Um, his advocacy work has been centered around empowering working class families through education, neighborhood organizing, and direct action to enact change in our communities. Uh, and just I'll share with y'all a funny story. I was like trying to figure out what to do for the month of February, right? And I just took a shot. I sent him a message. To our surprise, he's familiar with Initiate Justice, knows about the work. But I want to welcome Fernando again. Thank you for being here with our IJ community, and I know you also share. So we have some of your community in here with our IJ community. So I love this. So without further ado, here's Fernando.
Thank you, Efrain, and thank you everybody for being here. Can you hear me okay? I know sometimes the audio is a little weak. Okay, cool, cool. Yeah, so again, thank you guys for inviting me. Like Efrain mentioned, I met Antoinette. I can't remember what year it was, but it was a couple years back in Oakland for a conference. And so, yeah, I learned about the work of Initiate Justice. I love what y'all are doing to empower families who've been impacted by the system, to organize families who've been impacted, to advocate for the change we need. So, again, honored to be here with y'all. I'm gonna share my screen so that y'all can see the presentation, and just let me know if you can see it okay. Are we all good there? Okay, perfect. So when Efrain reached out, he said, hey, we want to organize a call and we want to talk about what we can learn from past liberation struggles, and particularly because it's Black History Month, we want to learn, we want to hear about what we can learn from the Black liberation struggle. If you're not familiar with my work, you see a Mexican man and you're like, why is he the dude to talk? I'd let Efrain know, I appreciate the invitation. I do want to make sure that we hear from our Black community members here in this space because I am by no means the expert on Black history, on the Black experience. But if you do peruse my page, you're gonna see that I'm definitely a fan. Uh, like these are some of my books that I got in my library here. Y'all can recognize some of these titles. We got Asada, we got Malcolm, we got Baldwin, we got Newton. So what I let Efrain know is I'm definitely a student of the Black liberation struggle. I'll share a bit about my background, but just so that y'all are aware, for me, ever since I learned about MLK back in elementary school, that's where I've looked to for guidance, is what Black leaders have done throughout history to fight for change. So before we jump in, my partner Leslie's here with us. I don't know if she said she's not able to unmute her. She's hanging on to my boy in the living room, so I appreciate her help. But if she wants to say hi, but something that she emphasizes a lot in the work that I appreciate. Before I met Leslie, I was very much in the political and the activism space, the organizing space. My partner Leslie, she has an organization called Latinx Parenting, where we talk about trauma-informed, healing-centered work and talking about the healing and the heart space that we need for this. So I want to just kick off with a little taking a breath, just slowing down. I know that a lot of the things that we talk about in these spaces and the work that we do, it can be heavy. And just to keep it real with y'all, I was with Leslie last night, and here in our neighborhood, we had police arresting a neighbor right on the corner of our street. And we had to go and audit and make sure that they weren't roughing them up and making sure that the neighbors knew their rights. And then we went to have dinner and, let out some tears just because of the weight of of that interaction. And so sometimes it's good for us to just slow down and feel what we need to feel, process what we need to process. So if y'all can just join me and at your own pace, however you feel comfortable, if you want to just take a deep breath and let it out. Do another one. Inhale in, let it out. And that's something that I really stress, especially in the work. We'll talk a little bit more about that later in the presentation, is giving our bodies what it needs. We need oxygen. If you don't have water on you right now, please go grab a cup, grab a bottle so that you stay hydrated. But let's take care of ourselves. So a little bit about me so that y'all can get a sense of, my background here. My name is Fernando de Veras, as Efrain mentioned. I'm the son of immigrants. My family came here from Jalisco, Mexico. My mom, when she was 7 years old, she came with 10 siblings. So big family parties over here. My dad, uh, he was a hustler. And when I was 2 years old, he got arrested, sent to prison. And when I was 5 years old, he got deported to Mexico. And so my mom ended up raising me and my brothers here as a single mom. She did a great job, I'd say, kept food on the table, made sure that we had everything we need. I'm based here in the city of Santa Ana, California. Anyone here been to Santa Ana or Orange County? Okay, we got some hands raised. Yeah, if you're not familiar with Santa Ana, there's a lot going on here and definitely worth checking out. I'm a father to an 11-year-old boy, and I'm a stepfather to Leslie's three children, ages 6, 8, 11, and 13, all across the board. So I got some experience working with kids in that field too. I have a BA in psychology from Cal State Fullerton, and I got my multiple subject teaching credential, where I went on to teach at a middle school where I was teaching world history, English, journalism, social emotional learning to sixth, seventh, and eighth graders. And I taught there for about 5 years. The population that I was working with, 78% or 70% Latino, 20% African American, and 10% everything else. When people ask what I do or what am I, what's my title, I always say I'm an educator and a community organizer. And education takes a lot of different forms. I might be in the classroom, I might be on a Zoom call like this, I might just be making content online. But my passion is to share whatever I can in terms of knowledge, in terms of guidance for people who are getting involved in this kind of work. As I mentioned, I'm also a trained facilitator with my partner Leslie through Latinx Parenting, and we do workshops for families, particularly in the Latino community, where we talk about healing from intergenerational trauma and trying to instill healthier family dynamics in our community. All right, so that's a little bit about me. Something that Leslie also taught me in the work is the importance of honoring our teachers. So we're going to be hearing from some of these people here, and I'm going to ask folks if y'all are down to unmute your mics and just share or to read off some of the quotes. But these are some of the people who have really inspired me, that have informed my worldview. We got Asada Shakur, James Baldwin, Bell Hooks, Fred Hampton, Howard Zinn, Paulo Freire, MLK and Malcolm over here, Angela Davis, Kwame Ture, formerly Stokely Carmichael, Carl Sagan, Maestro Jerry Teo, he's the founder of the National Compadres Network, and my lady, Leslie Priscilla. So if you appreciate anything that I say here, if you want to learn more, please drink from the source, take a screenshot, and you can learn from some of these people here. And I just wanted to share too, right now we're talking mostly with groups of adults, college students here. I also do work with younger folks. So if you are ever looking to bring these conversations to young people, high school students, middle school students, well, we're also interested in bringing those conversations to the younger generation. All right, so before we start, I'd like to hear from some of y'all if you could either type in the chat or if you want to unmute your mic as well. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me read this off here. So a couple reminders before we jump in. There's power in our stories. And I think that Initiate Justice understands that. When you share your stories, when you reflect on your experiences, and you give that testimony, there's power there. So I'm going to share a bit about my story. I'll share what I know, but I encourage y'all as well, if you have capacity, if you're willing, to share whatever comes to your mind. Everyone knows something you don't. I know some things, y'all know some things, and we share, and that's where we all grow. And we're all constantly learning and growing. So if you feel like, you know what, I didn't know this stuff last year, okay, good. You got time to learn it now. So intentions, before we move forward, if y'all can just type in the chat, well, what brought you here today? What brought you to this space? It's a Wednesday afternoon. You could be chilling, watching some Netflix, but you're here with us, engaging in this conversation. So I'd like to hear from some of y'all. If you can type in the chat, or if you're willing to unmute your mic, raise your hand. Let us know what brought you here today, and what are you hoping to gain from this conversation today? I see Paloma's got a hand up. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Paloma Serna. I am the mother of Elisa Serna, who died November 11, 2019 in one of the San Diego County jail from medical neglect. She was in custody for 5 days, and she was going through alcohol withdrawals, and medical staff and the deputies, they never treated her. And so her death was preventable. And so, and no one is held accountable. Also, too, my fiance is doing 45 years to life. So before, with these two incidents, I've learned so much. I've been on this journey for the last 6 years, learning to advocate, for my daughter, but and for others also, you know. So I've learned quite a bit, but then also too with my fiance, you know, I'm learning the in custody stuff. Right now, he has a hearing with the RJA, the Racial Justice Act. And so, you know, I appreciate this space here. I've attended, I think this is my third one. I'm always, I'm open to learning more from others, everyone's, their thoughts, their way of thinking, things that, I might not know, obviously. And I appreciate that, everyone is gathered here tonight to learn something like what was stated, we're never too old to learn something. I'm 50 years old and I'm always willing to learn more, from the young ones and,
Mm-hmm.
or people my age and stuff. But, I'm on this journey to not only get justice and, and see, the law, be applied justly to the people who have committed a crime, but, it's helping others, who are still waiting for answers to what
Mm-hmm.
happened to their loved ones that died in custody. So that is mostly my focus is the in custody deaths. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Paloma.
Thank you, Paloma. Thank you for sharing. And I appreciate, it takes courage to be in those spaces and to advocate. So thank you for your courage as well. I want to pass it to Elizabeth and then I'll read some off here in the chat. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Thank you. I'm here because I served 30 years on a juvenile life without parole sentence. And while I am able to sit here in the free world, I have many brothers and sisters that are sitting caged up, being warehoused inside. And I've been doing policy work since 2009 when I started my own organization within the prison to amplify the voices of the women that, laws that they were trying to change for juveniles, but they weren't hearing our stories. And I felt and I believed that our stories needed to be heard. So I'm here. I believe that knowledge is power. So I'm hoping to gain knowledge that I could take back inside to my brothers and sisters. I'm still doing the work from out here, going inside. And this is something that's dear to my heart. And yeah, I'm just present.
Mhm. Thank you, Elizabeth. And we'll talk a little bit about that in the presentation too, just the power of bringing the knowledge that we gain through our experiences back to the people who are still in the valley, as Fred
Yeah.
Hampton says.
And
So
I just
thank you.
wanted to highlight Fernando. Elizabeth was one of our inside organizers who went through the curriculum inside and did amazing work while inside. Has came home, continued to stay connected with us, continued to do the work, has gone back in numerous times, and is now in LA. So I know she's going to be connected even more so. So
Thank
thank you,
you.
Mhm.
Liz.
Thank you, definitely.
All right, yeah, I'm going to read just a couple here from the chat. So I see I'm here to get to know IJ's outreach efforts, hoping to learn about how the Black liberation struggles connect to our current day struggles for justice. Thank you. Mercedes says, I want to learn more from others other than Efrain, and I want to help my community. I want to advocate for my community and be a difference. Thank you. Little
Thanks.
jab in there. I see we're all lifelong learners. Appreciate you, Paloma. Here for a dose of Fernando. Hello, Pat. Pat's a friend from Orange County. Good to see you here, Pat. Was excited to see him invite to this space as do some work with Decarcerate OC and People's Budget OC. And then Sheila says, here to learn how to advocate on specifics on what to advocate for to bring on systemic change. All right, thank you all. Um, so I'm going to move forward here. Like I mentioned, there's going to be a lot of opportunities for you to share out, to interact, to hop off the mute button and read off some things. For the sake of time, I'm going to ask that people keep it brief because we do have a lot that I want to get into here. All right. So first point, that education is key. This is something that we learned through the Black liberation struggle and the Chicano movement and various struggles. Education is a critical tool in our tool belt. Would someone want to read this quote from Asada for us?
Happy to do it.
Go ahead.
Nobody is going to teach you your true history, teach you your true heroes if they know that that knowledge will help set you free.
Thank you. Again, if you have not read Asada Shakur's autobiography. It is a powerful piece of literature, powerful testimony from a woman who was on the FBI's most wanted list. Most of the people that we'll be talking about today have been on some kind of watch list or have outright been exiled from our country for the work that they did. But her story is
Echoing that 100%, 100% echoing that. When I first got involved with Initiate Justice, I was actively reading Asada's autobiography.
Mhm. Yeah. So thank you. Now, I mentioned that because as an educator and as a student of these liberation struggles, I know that there are certain stories that when we were growing up, we were told, and certain stories that were not told, which means perspectives that were included and perspectives that were not included. And there's a reason for that, right? There's framings that serve certain interests, that serve certain systems. And so when certain stories get told, it poses a threat to those systems. And so we don't get to hear those stories. I know, again, as an educator, that there's implicit biases that are baked into our education system. Who's writing the textbooks? Who's writing the curriculum? Who's in the front of the class? And what biases are they bringing in with them? And so, for many of us growing up, going through the K through 12 education system, we don't get the kind of education that sets you free. And so, our job is to challenge those narratives that we were fed, to educate ourselves, read the books, listen to the speeches, listen to the interviews, and share that knowledge with others. And so I want to ask the group here again, you can type in the chat or if anybody would like to unmute for a bit. Again, if I'm going to ask that y'all keep your answers brief just for the sake of time. But what were some of the stories that you remember being told, and what stories did you learn later on that were left out? And who do you feel that that framing served?
I can share, I can hop in um, just to get things started while other folks kind of
Hmm.
stew on this. Um, Thinking back to when I was little, I remember a story that my dad would often tell me of how my grandfather's grandfather ran away from slavery, married an indigenous woman, and now we're here. Um, and so like from an early age I was kind of told that story, and but growing up like in school systems or in community and in greater society, was never really, I don't know if I was ever really taught or that it was positioned to me that yes, there are people with indigenous blood as well as African ancestry. um, and so that was something that I think kind of carried me through life. And but later in life, I would say like in my 20s, my late 20s, I started really getting into genealogy. And then I'm learning my mother's side had a great grandfather who was born in Oklahoma before it was a state and is on the Freedmen tribe rolls. And so um, that is something, again, like I don't recall learning about the Freedmen tribes when I was, in school or anything like that. So those are, again, stories that are left out. And even to this day, like there's still so much contention with um, recognizing the folks that are descendant of the freedmen tribes and all that. So it is something that I think I'm reflecting of and more aware now later in life, but it's something that I definitely wish I would have known earlier on and had like the not just coming from family, but also have that reinforcement from my like formal education as well. So
Hmm. Yeah,
that's what I'll
thank you.
share on that. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, there's a long history of that shared uh, connection between indigenous communities and enslaved African communities. How many of you remember learning that the Underground Railroad went to Mexico? That's something I had to learn later on, that uh, there were communities of escaped slaves that ran off to Mexico and set up communities there. So those are the kind of stories where if we don't hear about that, then we don't see how we're related in these ways. So yeah, thank you for sharing that, Adriana. I see we got another one here. I've had to learn about my Native brothers and sisters as an adult. America hasn't done children justice when it comes to the children of the land. And then Viv says, from my dad, white is right, as we completely denied and refused to participate in any of our cultural, ancestral traditions or rituals. Yeah, so we learn to assimilate. We learn to assimilate, and if we're not rooted in our history, in that history that was kept from us, then the next best thing is to assimilate to this history that is made available to us. So this is just some resources. Again, y'all can screenshot, or if you want, I can send this presentation later. These are just some books that you might want to check out to kick you off in that direction, to learn some of that history that was hidden from us. And if books are not your thing, there are also a lot of great documentaries and movies that we can dip into to learn these histories and uncover some of this. And for me personally, I love YouTube University. I love going on to channels like Crash Course that has all kinds of subjects that you can learn from, TED Ed, podcasts like Throughline, PBS Origins, all kinds of great resources to start uncovering this. Kwame Ture says, if you expect the system to educate you, you've made your first mistake. And if you don't go and educate yourself, you've made your second mistake. So educate yourselves. That's a key part of this movement. This next section I want us to talk about is on hypernormalization. I feel like this is a word that we've been hearing a lot lately since what's been happening in Gaza, what's been happening with the ICE raids, with what's happening just every day. You see something on your phone and you're like, is this the reality that we're living in? And over time, we just we normalize it, right? And so there's a quote here, another one from Asada. They're not all by Asada, I promise, but she's got a lot of bars, so I had to include them here. Would anyone want to read this one for us here?
I will.
Is that Lisa?
Yes, yes.
Go ahead, Lisa.
Hi, everyone. People get used to anything. The less you think about your oppression, the more your tolerance for it grows. After a while, people just think oppression is the normal state of things. But to become free, you have to be acutely aware of being a slave. Asada Shakur, 1947 to 2025. Rest in
And
peace.
thank you, Lisa. Rest in peace. So, yeah, I want us to just really sit with those words here. There's another briefer quote here. If someone would like to read this from Brother Cornell West, who is still with us, but he's an ancestor in the work as well. Anyone want to read this one for us?
I
I can
will.
take, oh,
It
go ahead.
takes courage to ask, how did I become so well adjusted to injustice? Brother Cornell West, 1953, present.
Thank you, Elizabeth. So, well adjusted to injustice. Another one he says is maladapted to indifference. Or, sorry, well adapted to indifference. So, that's something that we really have to challenge in this work. As we see the kinds of injustices that we see, there's a temptation to just throw our hands up and say, that's the way it is. That's the way the system works. You know, if you don't want to see your family brutalized by the criminal justice system, well, just follow the rules, you know? And if they don't follow the rules, well, that's what happens. We have to challenge that because we deserve better. The systems that we live under, they work to shut down those internal signals from our body, from our conscience, from our spirit that says things are not right. It shuts down our sense of empathy for other people. When you're walking down the street or driving down the street and you see somebody who's sleeping on the sidewalk and people are just walking past them, we have to turn that empathy off because if we don't, we just shut down with that level of injustice. It also disconnects us from our shared humanity. We put ourselves in silos. We're isolated from each other. We don't know that shared history like we were talking about. Conditions us to dehumanize others, see them as criminals. When it comes to the immigrant community right now with ICE, right? Criminal illegal aliens. When it comes to people in Palestine, when they label them as terrorists. When it comes to our people who are locked up, they call them thugs, right? So all kinds of dehumanizing language. It normalizes the oppression of others and it forces us to submit to our own oppression. Because if you can't speak out about these things, then that is its own form of oppression. And so the liberation struggle is really the fight for our humanity. And so again, I want us to just meditate on that question of what are some things that we see today in the world that we're living in that you see being normalized, that people are just kind of turning a blind eye to and going about their business as if this is something that we're just going to have to accept. And then the second question to that is, how can we resist the normalization of those injustices through our work? All right, so for the sake of time, I'm going to ask that we just kind of meditate on this. If you'd like to type in the chat, what are some things that you see that you wish more people would challenge, that you wish more people would speak out against? And then what are some things that we can do through our work? Part of the reason that I love the work that Leslie and I do is we get to have these conversations. And we get to name these things and we say, isn't this unfair? Isn't this unjust? Don't you want to do something about it? Like that's what keeps me going, is that we get to challenge that in people's brains. So again, I'm checking the chat here just to see what some folks are saying. Someone says, want to tap in with the memification being more popular in younger generations. Humor to cope is spreading past personal experience and bleeding into group struggle. Laughing tends to make things feel more normal, especially online. Racist tropes used by people in power. Yeah, we all saw that post of the Obamas. You know, that's the leader of our country doing that. That's not normal. When Obama gets yelled at for wearing a beige suit, and meanwhile, this is becoming just the norm. Yeah. All right. So thank y'all for sharing that. Again, all these questions, I hope that you take some time and reflect on these after we wrap up here today, because there's a lot that we can continue to talk about. All right. This next part is about digging for the truth. And I want to open with this quote from Brother Kwame Ture, a personal hero of mine. Very short one. Anyone want to read this one for us?
I read it.
Mm-hmm.
To seek, I don't see the other word. Seek to be
Sorry.
conscious
Mm-hmm.
means that one must seek to know the truth. Kwame Tui,
Mm-hmm.
aka Stokely Carmichael.
Thank you very much. Now, when Kwame talks about consciousness, he stresses, he's like, this does not mean uh, someone who is a holder of degrees. This does not mean that you have all the knowledge. It's just recognizing that you have a responsibility to humanity, that there are certain injustices in this world, and that we have a responsibility to name those injustices and resist those injustices. And so people, as Kwame says, have an instinctive desire for truth, an instinctive desire for justice. And consciousness is just us tapping into that, to recognizing the true state of things and becoming aware of those injustices. They call it woke. They try to downplay it. They say, oh, the wokeification of everything, this and that. It's just naming that things are not okay and we deserve better. The truth, as we know, makes certain people very uncomfortable. If you are benefiting from the way that things are, if you're benefiting from the lies that this society operates on, it's going to make you uncomfortable when people start poking holes in those lies, right? They prefer the narratives that they've been fed. They prefer the comfort and security of being complacent, of just letting things go as it is. But if we really want freedom for all our people, we need to recognize that the truth is the only way that we're going to get there. We can't just keep turning a blind eye to these things. And so this is similar to the question that we asked earlier on about education, but I want us to reflect on what were some of those truths that we uncovered that helped to radicalize us. And the word radicalize, I put it in quotes here. Why? Because when people hear the word radical, what do they think? They're thinking some dude with a Molotov cocktail chucking it at a cop car. If that's your vision of radical, really what we mean when we say radical is just reconnecting with our humanity. Radical in a society that treats injustice as a normal thing, is fighting back against that injustice, right? And so, what truths did you uncover that helped you to start to see that things are not okay? What stories did you learn? What experiences did you have? Right now, I can tell you that talking to a lot of my white liberal friends here in Orange County, seeing things like what ICE has been doing in Minneapolis and around the country, that's radicalizing some of them. They're seeing this and they're saying, I know this isn't okay. And I have some responsibility to resist that. And sometimes it can be frustrating when we see this is what it had to take, but we have to meet people where they're at sometimes and just say, all right, now that you're on board, let's get it going. That's something that I want us to consider here. Angela Davis, another powerful leader. If you've not read her book on this stuff, buried in here somewhere. She has a book called Freedom is a Constant Struggle. She's a visionary. She's one of the people. If you're an abolitionist, you know the name Angela Davis, of course. Can someone read this quote for us here?
I can read it. Sorry. Radical simply means grasping things at the root. Angela Davis, 1944 to the present. She's still with us, y'all. She's still with us.
She's still here. She's hanging on. Yeah. So getting to the root of things. I think that one of the problems that we face in the work that we do, I know that y'all have seen it, is that people like to look at the surface. They don't like to dig beneath the surface at root causes. What is the root of the problem? If somebody is struggling with substance abuse, they want to treat that like it's a character flaw. They don't want to ask what led that person to resort to using drugs to numb and to pacify whatever pain they're feeling. And what can we do as a society collectively to help address that, as opposed to putting them in a box and hoping that they learn their lesson, right? If somebody, again, is sleeping on the street, is it because that person just doesn't have the grit to make it through the world that we have around them? Or is it because the world has created some odds, some obstacles, some barriers that make it hard to just live a decent life, to afford a roof over your head, to afford education, healthcare, food? These are root causes, right? But we like to look at the surface. I thought I saw a hand up. Efrain, did you have something you want to add there?
Yeah, I was just gonna add, I think this is something that I myself and a lot of my brothers and sisters here on the call, we broke down while inside, while incarcerated, while in those self-help groups, having these conversations, right? And one of the many things that we really, they think that everybody in prison is a bad person or whatever it might be, right? They put us these labels. Um, but they don't tap into the root cause, right? That there goes that saying that hurt people, right? Many of us, I myself included, have committed harm because I was harmed. You know what I mean? I go and even diving into further of that, it's like why I joined the street gang, right? Why I did this, why I did whatever it was, right? Thinking about the resources that were available for our communities, right? A lot of a lot of things could have been prevented if we did have those resources, right? That we needed in our communities. If we did have that person that can talk to, that we can talk to, that we could hear, that would hear us out. Um, so when we, diving into the root cause, it's like we used to call it in our group is peeling off those layers of the onion, right? Every time we peeled off a layer, we shed tears with each other, right? Grown man in a level 4 high security prison, crying, sitting in a circle crying, right? But those things were needed to dive into our inner self and dive into those root causes of why we became that person that we became, why we wore that mask that we wore. So just wanted to add that.
Yeah, thank you, Efrain. Again, like the personal experiences that y'all bring here are really what make these conversations meaningful. So thank you, Efrain, for sharing that. And yeah, I know from having conversations with people here in Orange County, we have organizations like Project Kinship and Neutral Ground that they work with formerly incarcerated folks, people who have made it out of rehab. And you hear some conversations where there's this sense of personal culpability, right? They want to take control of that narrative and say, you know what, I made mistakes and I got to own up and I got to straighten out. And we want that. We want people to take accountability for their own life, but we also want to add that context of it wasn't all your fault sometimes. Sometimes there were certain factors that were out of your control. And so what can we do as a society? Because you're not an island. You're not on your own. There are people around you that should be looking out for you too. So what can we do? Right? I want to just name this point here too, that when we're trying to unpack what those conditions are, we have to have the vocabulary for it. We have to be able to name it. And unfortunately, because of our education, because of the conversations that happen in mainstream media and in our close spaces, we sometimes don't get exposed to that vocabulary. We don't get the language. And so, what we want to learn from these folks is what that language is. Because if you don't know what you're up against, then you're not going to know how to fight back. There's a quote here from MLK that I think speaks to this point clearly. Would anyone want to read this for us?
I'll read it.
Go ahead.
One day we must ask the question, why are there 40 million poor people in America? When you ask that question, you begin to question the capitalistic economy. One day we must come to see that the edifice which
Mhm.
produces beggars needs reconstructing. Dr. Martin
Thank you.
Luther King.
Thank you, Alicia. So that step-by-step analysis, right? We have poor people in this country. We have millions of poor people in this country. And I'm not just talking about the people who are sleeping on the street. I'm talking about people sleeping in their cars, people sleeping in motel rooms, people sleeping on couches. We have millions of those people. And we have to ask, why is that? In the richest country in the world, why is that the case? And so we have to analyze the economic system that creates those conditions. And so the deeper you get, the bigger the problem seems to be. But if we don't look at the problem in the whole scope, then we're never going to get the solution. It's going to be band-aid after band-aid after band-aid. Right? There's another quote here from Sister Bell Hooks. And I'll go ahead and read this one just for the sake of time here. She says, imperialist, white supremacist, capitalist patriarchy. We can't begin to understand the nature of domination if we don't understand how these systems connect with one another. Now, how many of us learned what these terms mean in high school or in our K through 12 education? Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of head shaking, right? Some of us might have been lucky. Some of us might have had that teacher who was like, let me put you on game, right? But most of us did not have this education. And most of us, maybe you had some college courses, you took some sociology, you took some radical history classes, and you start to uncover this. Or maybe you got one of the most dangerous things, a library card, and you got this information yourself. So when we have that information, now we're more equipped to actually tackle the problems. Right? I see Amy here says, I did, but from friends and community. Yeah. All right. So something I'd like us to reflect on here is why is it such a challenge in our world to name these systems that we're up against? Why isn't it? I can tell you that I'm grateful to have a space like this where we can talk about this. If I were to go to a K through 12 classroom and speak to students and I use language like imperialist, capitalist, white supremacist patriarchy, I'd get some admin coming in saying, who let this man in the door? Right? And so there's certain conversations, again, that certain people are not willing to engage in. So how would it change the conversation if we started to name those systems? And so what can we do, again, in the work that we do, in the relationships that we have to start these conversations? All right. Okay, I want to pause one more time. I know that sometimes the conversation gets heavy, and just take a quick breath. How we feel? Anyone want to check in? How we feeling right now? Y'all got your water still? If you need a refill, get your refills. Okay, and I want to just do a quick time check. We're approaching 7:30. Efrain, do we have time to keep going?
We're good right now, man. We're
Okay,
good.
perfect, perfect.
I just dropped in the chat also. Like, feel free. I know he's kind of pushing us through this. Feel free to drop some reflections, questions. Raise your hand. If you'd like to share something. Again, this is a community space. You know, we want to learn from each other as well.
Yeah, I'll actually pause here for a minute. Again, I know we kind of blazed through a couple points here. If anyone wants to share just some reflections you're having, some thoughts that have been coming up from what we're sharing here. I see Adriana, you got a hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll share. This is really great. Something that was coming up for me with like some of the words was like, and I was trying to think about like, oh, the things that I did learn in high school because I had a really great like high school experience in terms of like the education. Obviously things were missing, right? But I was thinking about like I learned about white supremacy, I learned about imperialism, I learned about capitalism, but as I'm thinking about it now, I don't necessarily think that I learned it from the framing in which I understand it today. So for instance, learned about imperialism, but in relation to like Russian imperialism and not necessarily like American imperialism, so the Romanovs and all that, like I'm obsessed. But I learned about them, but not necessarily like as it relates to America. And then like I said, understood that we lived in a capitalist society from a very young age, but not necessarily, it wasn't like a bad thing back then. It was like, oh, this is our type of thing over here. And then other people got socialism, which is bad, right? And so those are the things that I learned. But in terms of like the patriarchy, that wasn't something that I learned until I went to prison. And that was like, that was like 16 years ago, right? So it wasn't, I think it's funny, like how we can learn some of these things in our younger years, right? But the framing is still like skewed, right? So it's like half truths that we are kind of picking up throughout our lives and not necessarily the whole experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very true. Thank you. I see Tyson's got a hand up.
Yeah, I wanted to speak on when you mentioned the reentry community in Orange County and the statement you made about telling people that it's not always their fault. And I just remember, I think that that was an important statement because I think having been in prison, serving a life without the possibility of parole sentence, there was like a fear or a silence that occurred for me personally where the system, I knew, I felt I could not say that it wasn't all my fault. I could not like acknowledge that mass incarceration had ultimately contributed to my incarceration to some extent, and to my father getting out of prison, taking me to commit a crime and going to prison with me for life without the possibility of parole. And I felt like that was important because of the fear that if I say it, I would never get out, right? And how the systems that we are up against at times continue to attempt to silence us and to uh, induce this fear to where we would not speak out against them to some extent or some fashion. So I really like that just came to mind as we was talking about it, like speaking out against capitalism is like you're not American. If you
Mm.
say that capitalism is the root of mass incarceration, I'm not American, and like sometimes it attempts to silence you. And I've even got funny looks for even like mentioning the idea of such. So that's I just felt like that was important. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Tyson. It reminded me of Adriana opened with a poem by Langston Hughes. Do y'all know what happened to Langston Hughes during the McCarthy era? He was targeted for his early writings. They saw him as too radical, as too sympathetic to the communists. And so he was questioned, are you a communist or are you an American? And so he had to change his tune. He had to change his tune for a little bit for the sake of maintaining his freedom. And so, yeah, the system has ways to silence certain voices if they feel like it's going to be challenging the system. So thank you, Tyson, for sharing that. Paloma, go ahead.
Yes, and so like I mentioned earlier, my fiance, he's doing 45 years of life. He's 50 years old, and we're working on his social bio with Silicon Valley Debug. They're helping us, with his case and stuff. But he was born in prison. His father, the post, his mother used to sell heroin. His father was a heroin user, and his father shot him up the first time when he was a teenager. And so all his three strikes were all committed because of his addiction. And so he's been sober for 8 years and he's doing great. But he is sharing these stories, of his life, where he acknowledged that he committed a crime, and but he's also um is understanding that some of the things weren't his fault. And so it was nice to hear that to be mentioned today because, sometimes, we all want to blame someone else, for why this and this and that. But to hear that, yeah, it really is, it's true, it's not
Mhm.
always our fault. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Paloma. All right, and I see a couple folks here in the chat were mentioning, let's see, I feel like they were teaching us through projection, not knowing we would actually live it today, if that makes sense. Yeah, so they teach you to see the world how they would like for you to see it. When you run into issues with the way that that presentation is actually playing out, then they would prefer you keep quiet about that. Antoinette, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know if you all can hear me. I'm actually driving now, so hopefully you can hear me okay. I
Hmm.
just want to acknowledge and appreciate Paloma and Tyson for sharing, and also want to acknowledge how deeply rooted or how all of this is also connected to individualism, which is highly like prioritized in our society, and the reasons why, right? These various systems, capitalism, white supremacy, patriot, like they thrive off of individualism, and it also contributes to this idea or like this socialization of everything you do is your fault. You have a decision, you made that decision, and all of that falls on you. You may or may not go in life and in society, or what experiences you have. And that is why it is so important, and why, at Initiate Justice in spaces like this and in organizing is rooted in building such strong community, and why community is so important. So just wanted to name that, and like what I'm hearing and what's coming up for me, and why I'm so grateful to have like this community, be a part of this community, and be able to unlearn um, those things.
Thank you, Antoinette. Aim says, "I wish I could clap, girl." So if you're able to, go ahead. Nah, thank you, Antoinette, for that. And I'll be talking about that a little bit further down. Just the importance of solidarity. Yeah, we're like you said, we are not individuals on an island. We rely on each other, and the sooner we can realize that, the sooner we can get free. All right, I'm gonna go back to the presentation here, but thank you all for sharing. Again, the chat's open. Please share if any other thoughts are coming up for you. I'm gonna go through the last bit kind of quickly, but again, feel free to pause me, Efrain, if there's anything that y'all would like to reflect on, okay? So, as I mentioned at the top, something else that I think is important in this work is just finding balance. Because I've been organizing for a while, I've been in the activist space, the political space. I've met many people who crash into a wall because they go, 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 they see the struggle and they recognize their responsibility to fight, and they don't make room for themselves. They don't make room to rest. They don't make room to recharge. So I want us to recognize that close analysis of the world and advocating for a better world, it can be very heavy. It can come with emotions like grief and anger, anxiety, fear, and frustration. And sometimes we don't have the room to just sit with those emotions, to process those emotions. Like I said yesterday, me and my lady, when we went to dinner, I just sat and I cried. I cried for a good 5 minutes just to let the tears out. Because if I don't, I get sick. That's going to stay trapped in my body, and I can't have that. And so we got to find balance. We want to allow for rest. We want to allow for joy, connecting with other people, building community with other people, and always, always, always anchoring ourselves in the understanding that a better world is possible, and that's what we're fighting for. It's not just look how terrible the world is, it's look how beautiful the world will be once we build it.
And just to add to that, Fernando, real quick, I think even with all that's going on right now, I think if you really look, you see the beauty of people coming together, of people fighting against back, of people helping community, feeding each other, do all of that stuff. And I think sometimes we have to stop and look at the beauty, even though we're going through these tough times, there's beauty in it and seeing the community come together.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely agree. So again, some questions for people to sit with. If you got a journal, you got a notebook, you want to jot it down. How are you finding balance? Where do you go? What do you do to rest, recharge your battery, to recharge your mind, your body, and your spirit? Don't forget, this is spiritual warfare as well. This is not just a physical game that we're playing. And who can you turn to when you need somebody to lean on? It's hard for some people who they don't have community. They don't have a Zoom call with 30 plus people that they can relate with. Me and Leslie, we're always talking about how grateful we are that we have our platforms on social media where if I think something, if I feel something, I'm gonna put it out there and I'm gonna get thousands of people who are seeing it, they're liking it, they're commenting. That feels great for me to feel seen, to feel heard. If you don't have that, then you're just holding that by yourself. That's hard. And so having that connection, especially in-person connection, because online's one thing, but human to human connection is another thing. Any thoughts, any reflections on this one here? I see Seraphin said self-care is a radical act of political warfare and self-preservation, not merely indulgence. Audrey Lord, I'm gonna add that quote to the future presentation. Thank you for including that one here. Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna keep going here, but again, let us know in the chat. What are some things that you do? We definitely need more human to human connection. Thank you. All right, taking action and getting involved. One of my favorite quotes by Chairman Fred Hampton Jr. Do we all know the story of Fred Hampton Jr.? Raise a show of hands. Who here knows the story of Fred Hampton Jr.? Okay, this is my kind of room. We got Yeah, so if you don't know, please learn the story. He was the chairman of the Black Panther Party in Chicago, the Black Panther Party chapter in Chicago. He helped initiate, I'll show you some of the programs here, free breakfast program for children. He formed gang truces in the city. And because he was such a powerful leader, he was assassinated by the Chicago Police Department at the age of 21 with the help of the FBI, who sent in an informant who was his security guard. That's how close they got. But he has a quote here that I love to go back to. He says, "Theory's cool, but theory with no practice ain't." Can I cuss in here? I'm not. We're all grown ups yet. Theory with no practice ain't shit.
You're good, bro. Do your thing.
I'm like, are there kids watching? Yeah. So theory with no practice ain't shit. The Black Panther Party. Most people who know the story of the Black Panther Party, they see where are we at? You know, they know Huey. They see black a man in a black leather suit with a gun and scaring off the nice police officers. But really, they did a lot more than that. First off, those patrols were community safety patrols because the police were the ones who were harassing and abusing their communities and violating the law, violating the Constitution. But they also started free breakfast programs to feed children because they recognized that our kids are going to school hungry. How are you going to learn when you got an empty stomach? They started free health clinics and bringing doctors to volunteer in the communities because they saw that they weren't getting the quality health care that they deserved. And certain illnesses that are prominent in the Black community, like sickle cell, were being ignored. And so they created a mass media campaign to bring attention to that. They created freedom schools to bring political education and historical education to their communities, things that they were not going to get in the segregated K through 12 schools that they were going to. So it was all encompassing. It's not just we're going to march down the streets with guns in our hands. It's we're going to meet the needs of the people however we can. And so this is another lesson that I want people to take away is that there are many ways to contribute to the movement. There's no one way to do it. And I always encourage people when they're like, what can I do? What can I do? I say, what are you good at? What are your talents? What are your passions? And how can you contribute that to helping others? Can you cook? Can you build? Are you an artist? Are you good with computers? Are you strong? Can you lift some heavy boxes for us? Are you an educator? Can you break this information down for people? Are you good at knocking on doors and talking to people? Whatever skill and passion that you have that you know is of use, is of value to the community, find a way to channel that. And when I talk to students too, I say, it's important to tap into relationships that we have access to. Who is in your immediate community? If you're working at a coffee shop, can you talk to your coworkers and get something going? If you're a student in high school, can you start a club? Can you start a student union? If you live in an apartment complex or in a neighborhood, can you start knocking on doors and talking to your neighbors and see what you can do to start bringing people together? Just break bread with people. And also recognizing that certain people have more access to resources and privileges than other people. And so if you have room to give what you can. If you don't have what you need, then we have to build up that muscle of being able to ask for what we need. Sometimes we're too afraid to ask for the help that we need, and so we stay stuck. And so taking that step and taking a chance that people who want to help will help you. It's not going to work 100% of the time, but what's that phrase? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right? So I want to ask the group here, nobody can do everything, but everybody can do something. What are some ways that you feel you can contribute to the movement, and what skills do you have to offer that you feel would offer some value? Again, we don't have to answer all these right away, but just some questions for us to reflect. I know that some people, when they see what's happening online or on the TV, they think, oh, I need to go. When's the next protest? I need to go protest. That's one way to give back, right? Mobilize, march, call attention. That's not the only way to give back.
I
Efrain, go ahead.
say, I would say, I mean, there's a couple ways, right? Like I think I've done, especially since the beginning of these ice trades here in LA. Um, one was protesting. Shout out to my partner Mercedes. She was out there day one. I was still hesitant. And then on my birthday, June 8th, I was out there protesting. But then also just sharing social medias, alerting the community, building the networks around you with your neighborhood to talk about when they're there, when they're around your area. Connecting with folks around you. Mutual aid, something we did with some of our family members, right, is giving them a call and saying, hey, we'll do the Costco run for you, right? That way you don't have to be out here. Things of that nature. So those are just some that come off to mind off the top.
Hmm. Yeah, thank you, Efrain. Again, simple things like I don't know the people you do. So can you bring them in? Can you knock on their door? Can you make that phone call? Adriana, and then I'll read some on the chat here. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think giving back, right? Because it's so huge, right? And then, like you said, like there's a million things that can be done, and like, what is your role? And I think something that I really been thinking about lately is with all of the heightened like stress and tension and worry that folks are feeling, just because of my previous experience. I know that the instances of things like interpersonal violence might go up because people are feeling so stressed out and backed into corners and things like that. So I have also actually been thinking of tapping in with my old organization to do some volunteer work. It's a domestic violence organization, so just tapping in with them to do some more volunteer work, whether it's direct service volunteering or just dropping off some stuff or whatever the case may be. But stuff like that. So that's where
Mhm.
my mind goes of like, oh, okay, there might be people that there's going to be people that are harmed right now, and so how can I best show up for them using the knowledge that I have? And I think that's one of them.
Hmm. Yeah, like those small interpersonal ways too. I know somebody who is very experienced in doing like body work massages and things like that. And so they put out a call saying, "Hey, can other body workers come together and we're going to host a session and all the people who've been out there doing these protests and patrols and mutual aid, give them some love, like help them to release some of that tension." And so that's something you could do, mediating situations where you see conflict. Not everyone knows how to mediate conflict. Can we step in and help with that? Right? So everyone's got skills. Um, yeah, I see Efrain said you could just be a listener and hold space for your family, loved ones, community members. I see Tyson here said, I want to protest, but my parole status has me afraid. Another way that it keeps people quiet. Yeah. Like, and that's something else that we really want to stress because sometimes you see certain ways of showing up. And if you're unable to show up in that way, you feel helpless. You
That's
feel like, uh, my hands are tied. But again, we
Mhm.
want to remind people there's so many ways to show up. Efrain, go ahead.
I see Amy also put, I'm an artist putting together starter art and writing kits for free zines as introduction information to the true history of America, resources for my information, for more information included, stuff like that. So I love that.
Yeah. So again, lots of ways, and I hope that y'all, reflect on what are some other ways that you can help moving forward. All right, this last bit, this is our closing bit, and then we'll bring it home here. The Another lesson that we learned from the Black community, the Black liberation struggle, is the importance of solidarity. Solidarity. Another quote from Chairman Fred Hampton here. Someone want to read this one for us?
We don't think you fight fire with fire best. We think you fight fire with water best. We're going to fight racism not with racism, but we're going to fight with solidarity. Fred Hampton.
Thank you. And like I mentioned, he practiced what he preached, right? The Black Panthers were not just they're often presented as like a black nationalist group who only cared about black people. Not at all. Not at all. They recognized the importance of the intersectional struggle. They inspired Latinos, Chicanos, the indigenous community, the Brown Berets, the Young Lords in the Puerto Rican community, the American Indian movement. These all took inspiration from the leadership of the Black Panther Party. And they formed coalition with these groups, the Rainbow Coalition in Chicago, spearheaded by Fred Hampton, the Young Lords, the Young Patriots. They brought people together saying it's not black, white, brown fighting each other, it's top versus bottom. And so let's bring the people at the bottom together because that's what they're really afraid of, right? The people at the top. And as I mentioned, it wasn't just limited to the US. You had the Black Panther Party, who was in solidarity with people in Palestine facing occupation. They were in solidarity with the people in Vietnam who were facing the war by the US. And they inspired groups in India. You had the caste system in India where they have the Dalits at the bottom. And they recognized that they had a struggle to wage too. And they took inspiration from groups like the Black Panther Party. There's a quote from Brother Malcolm here. Would anyone like to read this one for us?
I am human. I am a human being, first and foremost. And as such, I am for whoever and whatever benefits humanity as a whole.
Thank you. His full name here, for those who don't know, after he changed it, El Hajj Malik El Shabazz, aka Malcolm X, aka Malcolm Little. Yeah, again, another person who often gets painted as some violent, radical person who hated everybody. No, he had tremendous love for people across the world, and that was his messages. Let's bring people together. A final quote from Sister Fannie Lou Hamer, a very simple one. If you're ever leading chants and you're looking for a crowd favorite, this one always gets the crowd going. Anyone want to read this one for us?
I'll read.
I can read it. Oh,
Oh, good.
all you.
Okay. None of us are free until all of us are free. Fannie Lou Hamer, 1917 and 1977.
None of us are free until all of us are free. You might think that because you got it good, you're okay. There's nothing that says they might not come for you tomorrow, right? So that's our conversation for today. I know that was a lot. Again, I know that there's some heavy topics in there, but I'd like for us to close off with just one commitment after everything that we've talked about, after some of the stories that we've heard from folks here. What are some reflections you're having, and what is one commitment that you would like to make for today? So if y'all would like to type in the chat again, take a minute. If you feel like coming off mute and sharing out with the group, we'd love to hear you.
Hey, this is Richard. I just want to say that my commitment today is to continue educating myself and gaining the knowledge that other people have so I can continue on the fight and the struggle. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Inessa, go ahead.
So something that I learned today was just like how the Black Panthers were able to use like a holistic way of like creating change, which I thought was really cool because honestly, most of the time in education, you learn that they were like some sort of like radical nationalist group, but that's like not the case. Um, I really enjoyed being here in the space with you. Thank you, Fernando, for doing this. And yeah, thank you. And also, I hope to continue learning this history, learning it this way, and not learning it the like filtered school way.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Anyone else want to share out?
Yeah, right here.
Go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, my name's Daniel, and this was good learning. It was a lot of refreshing, education for me, but also that I want to continue with my family. And I was just educating on them on some things this morning. I was doing some messaging, voice messaging, and I was doing a teaching on one of my tribes, the Yaquis. And it was a good message about some history, but also where we should be going today. And also, it helped. This has helped me to learn about wanting to work within my own neighborhood and my community where I'm at right now. And I have been kind of talking to people. I've talked to a young man today in school and trying to, make sure he's doing okay. So it was a good talk. And, hopefully to get involved with my spiritual belief, which I'm a part of in the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. I look forward to that and hopefully getting my one of my orgs together eventually. It might take some time, but do some, get some organizing going. So this is good. It's inspiring.
Thank you, Daniel. That's what I like to hear. I'm
We
glad
have
I can motivate some folks. So appreciate that.
we have a couple minutes, but I did want to read some from the chat. I know Adriana put the next book. Her commitment is the next book she buys will be one about liberation. Mary P put, thank you. One commitment is sharing the knowledge with my community. Edwin, continue promoting systems of advocacy. What's up, Sally? That's my old Sally right there. Alyssa, get more involved in community organizations in Orange County is my commitment and sharing this knowledge with others and continue to learn. Pat Davis put my commitment is to keep showing up with whatever I have to offer. Um, so there's a few from the chat. Sophie actually put continue learning, read books, watch movies, docs, anything to continue to educate myself. And Danny put one commitment, fighting to end mass incarceration. Just end incarceration. Hi, Danny. One thing I'll share is actually I mentioned I'm a student at heart, is continue to learn. I was just at the George Jackson Organizing Training School up in Oakland this past week with some community members. Met new faces, new people doing amazing work, and continue to sharpen up my skills. Learned a lot more. Again, something that I want to bring back to our community. So yeah, I'm gonna always continue to be a student.
Mhm.
Yeah, for real.
Thank you guys. I wanted to just share one last slide. Let me see if I got it over here. For anybody who would like to connect. Oh, I did have one more quote, but I think we got enough quotes. Actually, I made it because I told Efrain when I made this presentation, I was like, I got too many quotes. But if you guys like quotes, I made a separate presentation just with the quotes. And so here, I'm going to drop it in the chat for anybody who would like to, take these home. Again, if you'd like to look these people up yourself and learn about what they had to say, there's a bunch of quotes for y'all there. But
I know you
yeah,
had one more slide, Fernando, for people to connect with you as
yeah,
well.
yeah. So that's the one I was gonna pull up here. Sorry, let me just share it. So if you appreciated the conversation, if you want to learn more about our work, again, my social media handle is Fernando.deveras. You can reach out to us there. My partner, Leslie Priscilla, her page is Latinx Parenting. And if you would like to bring us in to work with schools, organizations, any way that you'd like to partner with us to bring these conversations to your community, you can send us an email at partnerships@latinxparenting.com or .org, sorry.
Yes. Can we get a round of applause with some emojis for Fernando? Thank you very much, brother. Thank you for being here, for just, guiding us in this conversation. Thank you, the community, for partaking, for sharing, for reading, for sharing your thoughts, your reflections, sharing a piece of you with all of us here. Again, we hold that in the sacred space here. Just know that. And like Fernando said, we miss 100% of the shots we don't take. I took a shot in reaching out to him. And I'm grateful, and and like I said, he's gonna be a good friend of mine. I'm gonna continue to learn from him. Hopefully, we talking about some partnerships in the near future, but definitely, Fernando, you're okay with me sharing the slides with our community, correct?
Yeah, this the
Okay,
presentation that you have, the public view, feel free to share that with the
okay. I'll definitely be sharing that out with the community in the recap email. And then again, this is recorded, so if you all want to go back and check it out after. But again, just round of applause. Thank you again, Fernando. Truly appreciate you being in space with you. Um
Yeah, thank
and
y'all for having me. I really appreciate, again, anytime I get a chance to talk about these things, I'm happy to. So thank y'all for bringing me in.
I have a couple things, and I know just as we close ourselves out, just again a call to action. I know many of you all, oh, obviously all of you all actually that are here signed up through our Zoom, but let us know a little bit more about you. To connect with you in the near future. Hope you can join us again. Again, this year we're trying to bring these to be hybrid in person in different regions, not just LA, because I know some people hate that we always have things in LA, but we want to bring it to different regions. We'll also still have virtual spaces. Um, But if this is your first time learning or being here in space with us at Initiate Justice, you can learn more about Initiate Justice by going to www.initiatejustice.org. Or feel free to email me if you want to connect, learn more, want to know more about the work we do. Again, we have community members inside and outside. We have that there. As Adriana mentioned in the beginning, we're going to be doing some in-district visits. If you're a community member and you want to get to know your representative, or you want them to get to know you, right, and let them know your concerns, reach out to our statewide advocacy manager, Adriana at initiatejustice.org. And stay tuned because next week, I mean next month, next month for our March community meeting, we will be in Sacramento, right, the state capital, where we uh, change policies, right, where we show up, show out. We will also be virtual via Zoom for our March community meeting, which will be Thursday, March 5th. We'll send out the link in the recap email as well. But we'll be unveiling our policy package for 2026. Our policy team will be joining us next month for that. And then also another way to make change. If you're new to the space, right, it's not just about changing laws, but also moving that money, right, following that money. Our community partners at Budget to Save Lives will be having a budget advocacy breakdown tomorrow. It's from 11 to 1, I believe. They do these training sessions. If you're curious to learn more about the budget of the state of California, they do a lot of state budget and also local. We'll drop the RSVP link in the thing. Again, that's for tomorrow from 11 to 1. Those are our community partners. I've learned so much in their space. So yeah, I think that's all I have to say. Again, thank you very much, Fernando. Thank you
Can
all.
I plug an event real quick? It's tomorrow.
Yes, Lisa, of course.
Hi everyone, I'm Lisa. I'm from CCWP, but I'm here in LA. So Ear Hustle is hosting a live show event, and it's tomorrow at the Lodge, and it starts at 8 p.m. You might want to get there early. And I just the organizer there said that if I get 15 formerly incarcerated people on a list, they can come for free. So here's my email. Boop, boop, boop. Email me if you all want to go with me tomorrow. And I'll put you on my list. And I need but I kind of need here's my email. Yeah, just email me and I'll put you on my list by noon tomorrow. I'm gonna turn my list in and I'll be able to get 15 of us in there.
I'm excited. Completely forgot about that. I'll tap in with you, Lisa, too. If anybody else is interested in the LA area and wants to go, the Ear Hustle podcast. Again, this is a podcast that started inside of San Quentin State Prison. So tap in with Lisa. Thank you for sharing that.